know, it's good to know it's there. It's supportive.
Right.
You see how my posture?
Exactly.
So I think she told you this will start. I read a little thing about how great you are.
And to a comfort.
So I can't wait to hear. Great.
You're pretty great. I'll tell you right now. Spoiler alert.
3, 2 to comfort.
Thank you, Katie. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We're here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Our next guest star in the critically acclaimed Broadway show, Jagged Little Pill, inspired, of course, by Alanis Morissette's 1995 Grammy Award-winning album. The show follows a typical suburban family navigating issues that are all too common today. If you haven't seen it yet, man, you are missing out. This show is fantastic. Please do me a favor, make a crazy amount of noise and welcome the great Elizabeth Stanley and seanalankrill. Guys, congratulations. The show is wonderful. You're wonderful. I'm so excited you're here. How are you guys doing? How's life right now? I'm sorry you have to work on your day off, but I'm excited you're here. How you doing?
Thanks for having us.
Of course, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're feeling good.
That's good.
Everything is great.
Awesome. That's what I wanted to hear.
It's a
It's
really...
February 2020. We're in a Broadway show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty
What are you
good.
complaining about?
Right?
I saw this was pretty cool. It was a couple of weeks ago. You guys were at Barnes & Noble celebrating the release. The official release and the official cast recording, huge moment in time, very, very cool. That looked like a lot of fun. What was that like? How was that evening? How'd that go?
It was very exciting because, we had recorded it sort of at the beginning of our rehearsal process for Broadway. So it was lovely to have a sort of official, sharing with the world of this thing that we love so much, and to sing some of the tunes, and kind of out of context, and with a very intimate little audience. It was wonderful.
I'm usually like laying in a bed with my eyes closed when Sean is singing Mary Jane. Right. So it was really nice to be like awake, watching it.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I wanted to get to, right? Is like not just the experience of celebrating the release, but also hearing it for the first time. It's got to be such a crazy out-of-body experience to kind of hear it. And I keep saying the word experience, but that's the only thing I can think of. Like to sort of take in this show that you are so used to consuming and creating a certain way, and now here it is in this alien where you get to sort of observe like a fraction of what the audience has. That's got to be wild. What was it like the first time you heard the recording and heard your show?
It was exciting. Yeah. I mean, there's always a little bit of the like, oh my God, is that what I sound like? Of course. That's a weird, you gotta get over that.
Yeah, that's part of it.
But yeah, really thrilling because I'm able to hear different things than I can hear, through the backstage feed, or even, like in Smiling, for example, I'm thinking about myself mostly and how do I sound? And am I not running into anyone going backwards? Yeah.
Exactly.
And so like really be able to appreciate the incredible, insane vocals that the ensemble is doing was also like one of the huge things I loved in here on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a listening party at Atlantic, and it was so thrilling. I remember our stage manager Ira saying at the end of it all, because we were all just completely dumbstruck by how exciting and how good it sounded actually, and then and he just said to us, that's what I hear every night, but it is so different for us on stage, and it was just lovely to hear all of those Tom Kitt's gorgeous arrangements of these amazing songs, and to hear them in that cool rock album way.
Yeah. Very, very cool. What's it been like now, just sort of seeing the response from fans and from the audience, and just like all the great reviews coming in? You guys worked so hard to put this thing together. I mean, the record you said you made when you were in rehearsals. Now here we are in a couple of months. What is it like once this thing that you worked so hard on is finally released to the world and it's so well received and people are having so much fun with it? How does that feel?
It feels like a dream come true. I mean, honestly, like there's so many times you work on something and you put just as much of your heart into it, and then people are like, "That sucks." And you're like, "Oh,
okay.
That
I
was
thought
my
it was great.
insides that you
That's
just
cool."
stepped on." Yeah. And so it's like I feel like I've had that experience enough times that it makes this even more special to be in something that it does feel like people are really getting something from and really
Yeah.
loving.
For sure.
Yeah, when we talk to people after the show, it isn't always the case. You can, as a performer, as a sort of someone who has helped create something, you can be passionate and think that it is the most amazing thing, and it doesn't always translate to an audience. It just doesn't, unfortunately. And it has been so wonderful the response to this has been just wonderful and overwhelming and so positive, and that's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
You touched on something, the fan interaction, and something I was really curious about. Like, and we'll get deeper into this with the beauty of the show. Every character is sort of putting a human face and experience to the headlines that we all kind of see. Everybody's dealing with something we're all familiar with in a way, and I'm curious what that translates to in terms of, does that influence the conversation with fans, or are you guys, what kind of conversations are you guys, the cast, having, like, between rehearsals and talking about all these different things that happen within this show?
It really does hit home for a lot of people, and many people. I think there is someone in the show that there are struggles we're dealing with in the show, depending on the character, that unfortunately many people in our country relate to on a very personal level, and it is heartwarming and humbling and very overwhelming at times, where people will open up and tell you after watching our show. But the show ultimately is about communicating, I believe, and opening up and sharing your fears and the sort of beauty of that and the bravery in that. And so I'm always just so encouraged, and I feel so hopeful when someone does say, "That was my life. Thank you for sharing that." Yeah, if I may, I last year I went to a doctor, and we started talking about the fact that I was doing this show.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what's it about? And I said, well, it is about a family dealing with several different challenges at once, primarily sexual assault and opioid addiction. And his face just dropped. And I said, oh, are you okay? And we were just in the waiting room before the show, and he said, I just lost my daughter to an opioid overdose. And then he proceeded to basically say lines that I say in the show as the person that is the loved one of the person struggling with addiction. And I was just floored by it. This very, very suddenly human interaction, so real suddenly that you think as an actor sometimes you're doing something that is a little fantastic, a little not really based in reality, but unfortunately there are many, many truths in the show that are touching home for a lot of people.
Well, that begs the question, when you found out, when you read the script, you're familiar with the story, where you have to go and what you have to do. We talk about how these are prominent. One of my other guests today, Dan Perez, he just released a book detailing, chronicling his addiction and his journey and his opioid addiction when he was working on details. And it's just like, it has hit so much of this country. Talk about coming into this, processing the responsibility of the role. How did you prepare to sort of communicate and tell this story?
Yeah, I felt very intimidated by the...
Scary.
Yeah, it's scary because it's so personal and so delicate, and is not something that I have lived specifically, and so I do feel a great responsibility to be as truthful and honest in the storytelling as I can be. So yeah, I did a lot of reading of books, by people with similar stories, watching documentaries, and then also visiting with actual people who have loved ones, and then also people themselves who are in recovery, and then likewise, and that's just dealing with addiction, but the sexual assault stuff too was a little easier for me to understand from a first-hand perspective. I think just in some ways being a woman, being the age that I am, I definitely feel like I'm on the edge of you know, my character's sort of in denial about what she's experienced or how she deals with it. And I think that like we are in this great moment where the 19-year-olds in our cast like don't see things in the same way that people 20 years older than them do. And so that was kind of awesome to speak to women of all different ages about that, and how are you seeing this, and you know, and then there are current events that you know have occurred during the time that we've been working on this that definitely provide fuel to the fire for wanting to portray this in a really accurate way.
Yeah. Well, I think you do an outstanding job of exactly that, and I think that's why it's resonating with people the way it is, and why you're having interactions like you're having. You know, before we go deeper down that direction, let's dial back just for a second and talk about this record that the show is based on. You know, it is not just a great record. It is one of those records that was like a moment in time for a lot of people. You can listen to this record, and it's one of those that transports you. And I'm curious what your relationship was like with Jagged Little Pill prior to being in the musical. When you hear the music, does it bring you back to a specific time? Like, do you feel transported?
Yes.
Fill me up.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think like getting to sing this and getting to sing it, you know, on a stage, and it's loud, and you know, you're in front of an audience. There's a part of that that feels really like, yeah, this is how I always wanted to sing these songs.
Right.
For me, I was learning to drive, I think, when the album came out, and so like these songs are forever. They remind me of being in the car
man, I
with
was
no
gonna say,
parents.
Yeah. Well, oh my God, that's perfect. That is like,
Yeah.
mwah.
Yeah.
Like it's a great car CD for sure.
Yes. Although my cousin was just telling me the other day, she's like, yeah, I remember I got my first CD player and I didn't have any CDs. And so I went to my brother and I looked at his collection and I was like, hey, can I have one of these? And he's like, I'll sell you one. And so for $15, the one she bought was Jagged Little Pill. I know. I was like, your brother was really, your brother was
The
really.
hustler.
Wow.
He was. He was.
Wow, that's cold.
I'm selling to you at a loss. I paid 18 for it.
Right.
We're related.
I know.
Sean, what's your connection to the record?
I mean, it was, you know, I really do think it's one of those albums it's seminal. It defined a generation. It's like, you know, it's like Tapestry, or I don't know, like there are certain albums that are just, they encapsulate a specific time. And for me, I'm about the same age as Alanis, so I was in my 20s. And it was formative. It was, for 2 years, it was the soundtrack of my life. I've said this many times, but it was just, I mean, it took me through breakups and falling in love and just there's just these beautiful, gritty, gorgeous human emotions told in such a you know, a wonderful, poetic way. And with that, I mean, her voice is so unique, and I don't just mean her singing voice, but her writer voice is so unique that it just, I mean, it was and really kind of continued to be everything for me, which is why I just constantly pinch myself. Like, I can't believe I'm in this show. I can't believe Mary Jane was always my favorite song on the album. So I cannot believe it every time we get to it in the show.
I forgive my ignorance. I don't know the full extent to her involvement, but I know you worked with Alanis a little bit, and I got to imagine that's got to be hard to sing her music when she's in the room. What was it like working with her? What was it like to be in that presence and collaborate on this?
Okay, so I have to tell an Alanis story. The first time I met Alanis,
Please do.
She came. She was very hands-on. She's amazing. She is one of the most giving, nurturing. She has goddess energy. She walks into a room and you just she's so supportive, and but the first time I met her was at, I believe we were doing we had about an hour left of rehearsal before we were going to do a run through for her. So she comes into the rehearsal studio, and the one thing that we needed to work on was So Unsexy, which at the time took place in our closet, which meant that I was in my boxer shorts at the time. And I remember meeting Alanis Morissette, and then 5 minutes later, standing 5 feet in front of her in my underwear, singing a song of hers, and thinking, what is
My
happening?
dreams of
I'm sure I've had
You know that nightmare you have where you're in your underwear somewhere you're not supposed to be? Like that's
insane.
yeah,
You
but,
lived it.
But she was so lovely and just she's so excited about this project, and she has said that it feels to her like this iteration of this album, and meaning the Broadway show, it is as if the album was always supposed to be this,
Yeah.
but she just didn't know it yet. And I'll let Elizabeth take over because she
I can't top that. No, but I everything that Sean said, you know, she's incredibly generous, and I think she is so collaborative and game that I never felt like she was sitting there, because she was about this far away from me the first time I sang in front of her, but it felt like she was like truly like, wow, like she just wanted to be a part of it rather than like, well, I have some notes, that's not how I sing it. You know, like, it's kind of like what she could do, you know, and I would be like, okay.
right.
Yeah, no, she's really, really wonderful. She's not, sadly, on my cell phone. We're not there yet. But if you're listening, I'm ready. I'm ready to take our friendship to that level.
Put it out in the universe.
Whatever. I texted her once. Okay.
You know, it's so funny to hear you sort of share her take on how it's like, oh, it was always meant to be this way, and I just didn't know it. And it's, you know, I feel like there's a whole bunch of sort of classic albums turned shows that have been coming out in the recent times, but this one does feel, as you're watching, like, wow, because there's so much in that record that I think it's easy to forget that it is an entire story. It's every emotion, it's every beat that you would need is there, and it lends itself so well to this format. When there's so much to mine and so much there, is there room for you to bring any of yourself to your roles? Or is it just trust what's there and trust what I've been given? Or how does that work as a performer?
Well, I'm going to speak for Sean as his scene partner. I feel like, yes, absolutely. I think every single person in our cast actually has made their roles what they are because of who they are. It was a really collaborative process, and we were really encouraged to do that. But, you know, I just know, because I'm his friend, and being on stage with him, like, he brings his whole heart to it. And that's, you know, that's not something that's in the script. Diablo Cody wrote an incredible script.
For sure.
And, you know, and she has this great ability, I think, to help us be able to laugh and write great comedy while also talking about really serious things. So that's, I love that we get to also have some good singers in there. But no, I feel like there's so much of who you are that if a different actor were playing that role, like, it would be a different character.
Maybe a different character.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's, you know, same. That was really nice what Elizabeth said.
I'm just tossing it to you now if you don't want to say anything.
It's true.
Go ahead.
I mean, maybe not quite to the degree of how amazing I am. No, you're. I mean,
Who really is?
I mean, come on. No, I mean, it's true. Because there is so much. Human beings deal with difficult situations with levity. That's common. Diablo Cody has an amazing way of putting that in our script.
For sure.
But Elizabeth found so much humor and a grounded, real, earnest, honest humor in this character that I mean, it was amazing to watch. MJ is who MJ is in this show because of Elizabeth. So and it's true all the way through the show. Everyone has been. It was such a collaborative process that I really do believe that all of these characters are what they are because of what the actors brought to it.
Are you guys, I always love finding out if this is something, not every performer does this, but they'll often sort of fill in the gaps that aren't on the page. Like we know there's a bunch of billable hours that Steve's making. Have you figured out what kind of cases Steve's working like in your head to help flesh it out? Like you guys create backstory. Oh, can you share any of that? That's fun.
What's something you invented for Andy? Something that helps you, and then we'll come back. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I mean, there's so many things, like the first candle that I light in the church, like for me, that's like for my mom, who I have an estranged relationship with. I mean, not Elizabeth, but for MJ. And then as soon as I leave the pharmacy, I'm on the street and I'm thinking, did she call other pharmacists? Is there another pharmacy I can go to? I could go into the city, but I don't have time because I have to. My kids will know that I'm not there, and then I have to explain to Steve. And then I'm in this scene in a coffee shop with the moms, and I'm scrolling my phone, and I'm thinking of people that I know that would have medication in their homes that I could just like stop by.
Right. Wow.
So that's like some of my
Which is common,
Inner
right?
monologue,
It's
yeah.
common that people will steal.
yeah.
Unfortunately, that they
Yeah,
go to people's
because
houses
it's
and
just-
steal their drugs.
You have
and
such
their
a it's
family.
like such a strong need.
100%.
We also we created a little
I
thing
love this one.
with
That's
us
what it is.
about that like the decorating of our Christmas tree is this historic thing in our relationship together. That's a big deal. We do it every year. It's like
Date
a big,
night.
yeah. And
So when I forget it,
so he's like forgotten it. So it's not just like whatevs, the tree will get up. It's like a really deep cut.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing.
And I talked with Diane a little bit about this, and this is just a little secret that I have that I just love. But I think Steve works in medical law, and I think he works for a big firm that represents like big pharma.
Right.
So I think his job is to go and basically he's on the other side of this story, even though he doesn't realize it. That he's basically kind of like screwing up, the people who are unfortunately becoming addicted to these drugs,
Right.
and he hates it.
Yeah.
Like morally, he is opposed to it. So what I love about the show is that I have my own secret. That it's not just that my job is taking me away from my family for these long hours, but I can't stand the work I'm doing.
Wow.
Because it's so that fuels me a lot, and then and then of course when it becomes very heated between us,
Right.
It's
That's fascinating. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling the curtain back and sharing that stuff. I just love hearing those little layers and stuff, especially for people that have seen the show. They can double appreciate it. People going into it. It's just all this extra little detail and effort. It's very cool to hear. We're going to turn it over. We got some questions from the wide world. We're going to take one in just a second. I see one from Twitter here. We're going to get to you. I have one last question I always ask when I have people of your talent caliber on stage. It's not that exciting, but I'm very curious. We talked about this briefly. Now it's 8 shows a week. I made a joke about it. This is your day off. How, as people that have done this is your career, you've done this. You're very successful with this. How do you keep the machine running? What is your self-care? How do you do this day after day, night after night, week after week? What are some secrets, things that you've done that have kept you going?
Sleeping,
Good.
lots of sleeping,
Really?
lots of water.
water.
Hydration.
I'm gonna just have to say everything.
Yeah. Okay, good. This is going great.
This is
Elizabeth
going great.
great.
Elizabeth is great.
Great. Sleeping a lot. I mean, also with I like avoiding loud things, not talking on the phone forever and ever. There are things just like vocal preservation. But especially
What a
with
great excuse to not have to talk on the phone.
Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness.
I'll just text you.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but it's I think with doing a role that is emotionally taxing, sometimes actors get the reputation of being crazy, and I just don't think there's any need for actors to be crazy. But I just got to make sure that I'm like doing like things that are fun,
Yeah.
and laughing a lot, and making sure I'm seeing friends and having a very full life outside of
Yeah,
my job.
for sure.
She's so good at that. She's much more good at sort of letting the show go than
Good answer.
very, very grounded person here. I'm a
You
little
take
bit
it with
more.
you.
I do. I try not to,
It's
but
hard.
it's weird. There's a lot of gaps in the show where as Steve, I'm just sort of sitting in confusion and frustration and anger and I want to let it go, but then there's like 30 minutes that I've got to sort of sit off stage and then come on with that frustration and confusion and anger, and
Right.
so I try to have this happy medium of like keeping it but not, and
Oh my God.
and then but I usually try to give myself a little ritual at night, like turn off the lights and say, okay, I'm leaving this here. I'm not Steve Healy. I'm gonna
Yeah.
let it go and be happy.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for sharing that and let us in. All right, well, let's get to the wide world. I don't want to eat up all the time here. This first one's coming to us from Twitter. This is from Camille Fung. And the question is, question for the stars of Jagged Little Pill, the musical. How lucky. That's exactly who's here. What is something that you learned from your co-star or someone in your cast in general while being in this show? So something you've learned from the cast, your co-star, somebody else you've worked with.
Something you've learned.
You